everyone, welcome to my third vlog for Orilium Autumn Equinox. If you are new here, I'm trying to read 42 books in 31 days. Thus far, it is currently the 17th, so we're a little over halfway through the month and I am at 22 books. So I'm on track, and I think most of the books that I have left in the month are actually pretty short, and I think I will be able to finish it fairly easily. I might get more than 42 books, which would be ridiculous, but I think it might happen. And I'm currently at around 5,500 pages, so it's also possible I might hit 10k pages, which is also really ridiculous. So stay tuned if you want to see what I'm continuing to read. And it's been a really good reading month. I definitely had some duds in the last vlog, but overall I've read mostly 4 stars and 5 stars, so it's been a pretty good month, and I'm hoping for a lot more 5 stars in this vlog. Fingers crossed. Alright, so since I last talked to you, so it's currently Wednesday, I last talked to you Monday, so I finished one book yesterday and one book today. So the book I finished yesterday was Valiant Ladies by Melissa Gray. I haven't talked about this one at all yet, but basically we're following 2 girls, Kiki and Anna, and I think it's like 1700s in Peru. So yeah, we're following these 2 girls. Basically, one of them is like nobility, and then the other one was like living on the streets. They ended up becoming friends, and then she ended up like coming to stay with the noble lady, and they've kind of like been growing up together, and they start having feelings for each other. So it is like a sapphic romance, but also the plot of the book then is that there are these women who are showing up dead on the streets after being raped and tortured and then murdered. And so there definitely is like a lot of graphic content in this, as far as like the descriptions of the stuff is very depressing, and so they want to figure out who is doing the murders. Also Kiki, who is like the noble daughter, is betrothed to somebody else, and they're gonna try to force the marriage through and get her married off. And so there is all that. I didn't really know what this was about at all when going into it, but I was pleasantly surprised. I ended up giving it 4 stars. This was to read a book with multiple people on the cover, and there are a heck of a lot of people on there, but also mostly just the main 2. I would definitely say like content warnings for this, like I said, is like the murder and the graphicness, definitely like assault, also for like suicide, and just a lot of like depressing stuff. I felt very sad like the whole time I was reading this. It did feel like a kind of like medium to slow paced book, but it was pretty easy to get absorbed into. And I would say there's also content warnings for this for a lot of like Catholicism, because of Spain like colonizing the Americas, and that they're in Peru. So the relationship between that, and they talk about like the Pope and the bishops, and especially Kiki is like always like praying, and like every time she like commits a sin, then she like always is thinking about like what she has to do to like cleanse that sin and stuff like that. So if that's something that you would find triggering, maybe go in with caution. Personally, for like the way that I was raised in Christianity, it wasn't triggering to me, and I thought it felt very natural within the story. But in case that's something that you might not enjoy, yeah, like I said, gave it 4 stars, and I liked it a lot, and I definitely can see how this could lead into like a series of books. I think it was like a good resolution, but there is a lot more that could come from these characters and the story. And I absolutely love seeing historical fiction with, well, one, sapphic-ness and queerness in general, but then also characters of color and set somewhere else besides frickin' England. So, I mean, don't get me wrong, I love my historical set in England, but it's so nice to get to see these characters that are from Peru. So there we go. I liked it, and I'm glad I read it. I didn't know anything about it when I went into it, but I just saw the cover and I said, that looks very fun, I want to read that. And it wasn't fun but I did really like it. I was mostly just very sad. Okay, so then the next book that I read it today. So basically, I was at work. I work at a library. I was at work this morning, and I was sitting on the front desk, and one of my coworkers is in the back checking books in, and they brought a book out to me and said, I think you would really like this. And it was a children's book called Bodies Are Cool, and this is by Tyler Fetter. And the prompt for this one was to read a book in 1 or 2 settings. And this was just like the most adorable children's picture book that was just saying bodies are cool. There was like 10 to maybe 30 words per page, and it was just say like everything ended with bodies are cool, each page. And it was just like the diversity in this, that it showed all types of sizes and shapes and disabilities and like trans bodies and fat bodies and just like all these different things. The amount of diversity was just like so wonderful to see. I really loved the art in this, and it made me so happy, and I loved everything about it. Women with like facial hair and unibrows, and Muslim people, and people with hearing aids and using wheelchairs, and just like everything you could think of for body diversity was in there, and it was just so great. I loved everything about it. Highly recommend. So I'm currently reading 4 books right now. So the first one that I'm reading, my nonfiction, is Ace, What Asexuality Reveals About Desire, Society, and the Meaning of Sex by Angela Chen. And basically she's talking about like her own experiences with asexuality, and also talking to other people, and then also studies. And I'm really loving it. I think it's digestible and interesting. I will definitely keep letting you know as I go along with it what I think, but thus far I can't see like why that wouldn't be a 5-star for me. The prompt for this one is, originally it was to read a book with anatomy in the title. I don't care, there's no books even that I'm minutely interested in with the word anatomy in the title. So I ended up changing the prompt to a non-fiction book about humans because I hated the prompt so much. G said you can change prompts to make them fit better for you, and anatomy definitely didn't fit for me. And then the other book that I'm currently listening to is A Dowry of Blood by S.T. Gibson, and this is to read a book with a bone on the cover or in the title. She's holding a skull, and this one is interesting. So I'm about 1/3 of the way through this, and it's a little, I don't know, it's not that it's hard for me to follow or understand. I just think the writing is a little just like not my taste. Not bad, but not my taste. So it's told in this like first person, somebody is telling you their life story, and I think that's the thing that doesn't work for me. I don't like books that is somebody telling you their story. I love books with like a narrator telling you a story, but just like somebody saying, and this was my life, and this is what happened, and I was thinking this, and she's telling it. I think the whole thing, she's like addressing this one person. So she's not even just saying it in general, like she's saying like, I loved you when you did this, and I didn't love you when you did this. And it's just like, it's not something I enjoy. And again, it's like, it's not bad, but it's just not like my type of writing, and I'm finding it a little like unenjoyable to read because of that. But basically we're following this woman who gets bitten and turned by a vampire. So it's her life going over centuries and centuries while she's like partnered with this vampire. And it's obviously very like depressing because of that. It's definitely a very like abusive relationship, both like mostly like verbally abusive and just like manipulative. And yeah, I don't know. Like I said, I'm about 1/3 of the way through it. It's very short. I think it's only like 5 hours on audio. Yeah, I'm 2 hours through the 3-hour, and I have 3 hours left. So this, I don't know. I don't want to like not finish it. Like I'm not enjoying it, but I'm not really invested and I feel like I should be when I'm almost halfway through the book. So I'll have to think about that, see if I want to switch something else into my TBR, but for now that's what I'm listening to, and I think I'm going to have to start another audiobook soon because it's not really keeping my interest, and Ace is, and it's really good, but it's not that long. Plus, I like reading a nonfiction and a fiction at the same time a lot of the time, so I'd like to read another fiction. So I'm probably gonna start We Are Legion, We Are Bob by Dennis E. Taylor is the author's name, and this is to read a book featuring artificial intelligence. I don't know too much about this, but Christopher really likes this series and recommended it to me, and I'm definitely in the mood for like some funny sci-fi and some cozy sci-fi, and I think this will give me that, so I'm very excited to read it. As far as the other books that I'm currently reading, physically I am reading Fence Disarmed by Sarah Reese Brennan, based on C.S. Pacat's graphic novels, and currently I'm 70 pages through, so I really need to chip away at this one more, chug away at it. I don't know what I'm saying. So it's 350 pages, so I really should try to get to like the 200 page mark tomorrow, maybe, if I can. The problem with this is that I am enjoying being with these characters, but also I want to like scream and slap them all because they're so dense. We're mostly following Harvard and Aiden, and then Sejay, is that how you say his name? I don't know. And Nicholas. We're mostly following those four characters, and all of them are being such stupid little teenagers and not expressing their emotions and not being able to understand their emotions and not talking about their feelings and I just like, oh, it hurts to read, but I am enjoying it, but also it's making me very frustrated. So we'll see how that keeps going, but that is one of my next goals, is to read as much of that as I can. And then I'm also still currently reading Yotsuba Volume 2 by Kiyohiko Azuma, and I'm currently this far through it, so not that far. This is the beginning of the manga, so I still have a lot to go, but this is a reread for me. I really love this. It is Thursday now. I got back from work about an hour and a half ago. I didn't wear makeup to work. I got home from work and put makeup on because I felt like it, and it's fun. I'm really happy with how it turned out today. Like the freckles, I don't know how well you can see them, but I'm quite pleased. And I really love like a no makeup on the eye and just a bright matte inner corner, or even a shimmer inner corner, and then a big wing. I think it's fun. So Dowry of Blood. I still haven't made a decision about it. I haven't read any more of it. I need to keep thinking about it, so we're just going to pretend it doesn't exist. But I did read the rest of Ace, What Asexuality Reveals About Desire, Society, and the Meaning of Sex by Angela Chen. And I love this. I think this should be like required reading. If you haven't read this book, please read this book. I learned so much. And it just like really everything it said, what it reveals about desire, society, and the meaning of sex. I just think that everybody could really take a lot away from this, even if they aren't asexual. And because asexual people can still have romantic relationships, it really causes them to have to analyze, if sex is not a part of the equation, what does romantic versus platonic relationships mean, and all this different stuff. And there's so much nuance in this book, and it addresses all these different things in so many different ways, and talks about like how race plays into being asexual, how the asexual community is predominantly white because people who are of different races often fall into different race stereotypes, so that they're not as easily able to identify as asexual, or feeling like they're identifying asexual either because they feel like they have to. In the case of like, she talks a lot about like how Asian men are seen as sexless, and so if they identify as asexual, they feel like they're like living up to the stereotype. Or like if you're a black woman and you're seen as like an over sexified, like, you know what I mean, like that sex is pushed onto them so heavily. Or the same thing with like a Latinx women, the same thing happens with them, is that it's pushed onto them so heavily and they're so sexified that if they fall into it, it's like, do I really want to be asexual, or am I just pushing against what society expects of me? And it just like talks about everything with such nuance, but also so concisely. This is such a short book. A lot of at the end is notes, and so this book is less than 200 pages. It would be 188 pages of reading, and I ask you to please read it. I just think everything was addressed so well. I've learned so much, and it really makes you realize that if you are, especially if you're part of the, I mean, this is everybody should be educating themselves all the time, but especially if you're part of the LGBTQIA plus community, to realize how important asexual people are to the community, and how desperately we need to embrace them and make sure that there's room for them in the community. And also the intersectionality between being asexual and different races, being asexual and different LGBT things as well, that you can be asexual and you can be a lesbian and you can be trans all together, and that they're not exclusionary, and that as you learn more about yourself, and that you need to take all the parts of yourself, and all of those things together will help you like come to your identity. And that you, like, if you're black, you can't take away your blackness from your asexuality, but in order to understand them both, you need to accept them both. And just like everything about this, I think, was brilliant. It also talks a lot about how heteronormativity, like, just like really puts so much pressure on especially like men to feel like they need to live up to this like over sexualizing, like aggressive, like always wanting sex thing. And that so many men, when they are asexual, just feel so utterly broken. And how there's so many examples of people who just like struggled for years and years and years to try to fix themselves, because they weren't able to live up to what their wives felt like they needed to, or society was telling them they needed to, or all these different things. And that when they found this community and this identity, it just like clicked, and they for the first time felt like they could breathe and weren't struggling with that. And it's just like, no matter who you are, I feel like you could get so much out of this. And that what you like, it's just vital to understand this. And I think all the points in this were just brilliant. I loved everything about it. Please read this. If you take nothing else away from this entire vlog, please go get a copy of this book, either from your library or buy it, pick it up on audio, in any way you want to consume it. Read it, because I think that, like I said, it should be not like required, but like that it is like fundamental for everybody, that they need to read this and understand this, because the way that we are forcing hypersexuality onto every part of all of the world is really alienating for these people. And I think in like the early 2000s, there was a study saying that like 1% of the population like identified as like asexual. And it's like, imagine how much more that actually is if people actually knew what asexuality is and understood their own identities. Like, so much of the population is asexual, and whether or not they choose to identify with that, like taking away like how much we push sex on everyone will make people's lives better. Just like everything. I'd not be able to articulate this as well as Angela Chen did. You did a wonderful job. And yes, please read this book. It was brilliant. So that was a great thing today. I just like absolutely devoured it, and super recommend, obviously. Okay, so then the next thing is, last night I ended up reading a lot more of Disarmed. I'm about halfway through now. I said that I did want to get to 150 pages, and I actually got to 170. So good job for me. I'm currently on chapter 21, which means I have 22 chapters left, so I can easily finish this by the end of the month, even if I just read a little bit each day. But I'm like feeling weird reading this. I don't know, just because like there's just a lot of words and exposition and descriptions and all the stuff that I feel like is not needed and is bogging the book down. And I think that this just I don't know, there's different nuances because like obviously with the graphic novel everything is just so quick, and so like all this different subtext and like the characters like emotions are really easily portrayed and all that, and I really love how that is played out. Like I gave the if you didn't see the last vlog, I read the most recent Fence edition of volume 5 and I loved it. I gave it 5 stars, but I obviously there's also something to be gotten out of this because you like are feeling the characters' emotions, and it's just like a lot more visceral in some ways. And I don't know, but I do think it lends itself better to a graphic novel than physically, or maybe it's just Sarah Reese Brennan's like writing that I'm struggling with. But I like wish that I could just take the second half of this book and just like put a data chip in my head and get the information and not actually have to read it. Whereas like I love reading and I love the experience of reading and I love consuming the story and like getting to learn the characters and everything. Like that's something, I'm a big reader and I love that, and the fact that I wish that this could just like the information could go into my head and that maybe I could just read like the best bits. I feel like out of the 150 or 100 pages I have left, I don't know how much I have left. Yeah, out of the 150 pages I have left, I wish I only had to read like, I don't know, a quarter of it. Just the good parts, just the useful parts. And like I said, it's very frustrating being with these characters because they are so stupid. So yeah, anyway, let's talk about what I plan on reading next. So now that I've finished my nonfiction book, I'm gonna try to pick up 2 things. Obviously, I'm already mentioned yesterday, I'd like to start We Are Legion, We Are Bob, and so I'm gonna try to start that tonight or tomorrow. I don't work tomorrow, which is Friday, Saturday, Sunday, or Monday. I have 4 days off. I'm gonna have a great time having so much time off, and so let's see if I can get a lot of reading done. But I'm going to read Mushroom Rain. That's so shiny. And this is by Laura K. Zimmerman, illustrated by Jamie Green. I really am obsessed with the illustrations in this book. Oh my gosh, the end papers, beautiful. I ended up seeing this at work. A patron was checking it out, so I placed a hold, and now I am going to read it. It's only going to take me a few minutes, but it is lovely. And this is, I'm so excited. So I'm going to read this, and then the next book I'm going to read, they go in tandem because I saw this book, The Secret Life of Fungi, Discoveries from a Hidden World by Aliyah Whitley. I'm going into this with very low expectations because it has low ratings on Goodreads. And I feel like typically nonfiction has pretty high ratings on Goodreads across the board. So if something has low ratings, you kind of wonder like how good it can be. There is a bibliography, which is good. The text in here is pretty large, so it is going to be a fairly quick read. I think the audiobook is 4 hours, but I'm worried about the low ratings. It's something like a 3.5, not like if in a 3.7 or a 3.5 is what I remember it being around. So I'm scared, but I'm gonna try it and see how it goes. That's my next plans. I'm feeling a little uninspired with my reading. I think because I'm getting down to the dregs of my TBR, the things at the very end that, like, now we're for the last, I mean, today's the 18th, I think. For the last 18 days, I've had a list of 42 books to choose from that was slowly getting narrowed down. And now that I'm down to the last bit, I'm starting to feel like I want to rebel against the TBR. So I'm going to have to see which prompts I can easily fill with other books. If I want to, like, just, what is that word? Impulse read? Mood read? There we go. If I just, like, want to mood read something, what prompt could it fulfill out of what I have left? And I think I'm going to have to do some of that because, like, there are books on my TBR that I'm very excited about, but also being limited is, I think, gonna take its toll on my reading speed, so we'll see how it goes. But I think for now I'm going to try to read the next 30 pages of this, get to page 200, and I will update you soon with my reading, obviously. It's currently Friday afternoon. It's around 3:30, and I was having a very lethargic, slow, lazy day, and so I decided to be productive in sitting down and just getting through a bunch of short books. But before talking about those, I want to say thank you all so much for the love on my first vlog. I just posted it last night. I was feeling very hesitant to post it. I was just feeling really anxious. I was feeling like it was a very, I still feel like it was a very boring vlog and unenjoyable, and I don't think I enunciated myself and, like, just got my thoughts out the way that I wanted to. I haven't felt like I have for a lot of the vlog. with a lot of the books. Some of them I feel like I talked about them well, but a lot of them I feel like I didn't, and I was just feeling very blah about it. But Christopher edited the whole vlog, he made the thumbnail and uploaded it for me, and I just want to say thank you so much. It really means so much to me that you still care about what I have to say, care about me, and care about Christopher and I, and are still interested in us, and that just means a lot. And everybody was so wonderful in the thoughts and comments they left, and it just meant so much to me. They're still coming in, and I need to sit down and respond to all the ones that have come in today, since I stopped responding after last night. I just need to get on the computer, but I've been reading them on YouTube as they've come in, and it just, thank you all so much. It seriously means the world to me, and you just made me feel a million times better about everything, so thank you. I appreciate it. So now let's talk about the books that I've read today. So currently I'm listening to the audiobook of Dowry of Blood, and I am around like 85% of the way through that. So I mean, it's a very short audiobook. I'll definitely be finishing it up very, very soon, and I don't know, all my thoughts still stand. It's just like not my kind of writing or book or story or anything like that. I just like, it's just too, I don't know, maybe just because I don't care about Costanza, so listening to her just like tell her story, I just find kind of, it just like, it's just not my thing. So I'm definitely going to finish it. I do want to know like how it ends. I want to know how the story goes, but I in no way say this to say like you should not pick it up. If you think it sounds interesting, I do think you should pick it up, because if the writing works for you, if the story works for you, the characters work for you, I can see why you would love this. It's just like not for me. All in all, I think it would probably be around 3 stars when I finish it. Not a new favorite, but I don't hate it either. There's nothing I'd like actively dislike about it. It's just, if this was going to be like even the same story but told differently, I could see this being a favorite book of mine, but it's not, and it is what it is. So then the books that I did read, I wanted to get through just a bunch of short things because I've been feeling like I haven't been making good progress on my goals, and while I felt up to reading physically, I figured I might as well just push through and get what I could done. So the first thing is to read a book that you think has a gorgeous cover, and for that I read Mushroom Rain. This is so shiny, but by Laura K. Zimmerman. It's hard to choose like a favorite illustration in here because all of it was just so beautiful. I really like this one a lot. Think it's absolutely stunning. I like this one a lot. The forest scene, impeccable, and this is incredibly beautiful. Also, of course, the end pages, absolutely stunning. And I actually learned stuff from this. This is really cool. So there's a thing in here, so you can obviously pause to read this, but seeding the clouds, and it's about how like mushrooms release their spores up and they go up into clouds, and then like the water gathers around like the spores, and then once it gets heavy enough they drop, and then more mushrooms will grow because those are like the seeds of the mushrooms. That's what rain is? I mean, it's not just mushroom spores. There's a bunch of things up there, but like, I didn't know that. Holy shit, that's so cool. But yeah, everything about this I loved. I loved how it was told. I loved the illustrations. I loved the facts at the end, and the fact that I actually like was able to learn something. I don't know how I didn't know that, and I probably have read it in a book before, but didn't know it. Utterly love this. Highly recommend it. I definitely need to pick up, so this is illustrated by Jamie Green, and I need to see if Jamie Green has illustrated anything else, because I would seriously hang like any of the art in here up on my walls. I love it so much. And reading these two books has made me realize something that I guess I should have known, and I knew this in my, like, subconsciously, but I didn't actually ever, like, put it into words for myself. The reason I don't like comic books very much, but I love, like, children's picture books, and I love graphic novels and other stuff. It's, like, the main reason. And this is not always 100% all the time, but I prefer lineless art, and I didn't realize that. But let me talk about this next book first. So this is Dewdrop by Kay O'Neill. This was to read a book with a sea setting, and technically that's not true. This is not a sea setting. These are freshwater animals, all of them, I believe, but it's a water setting. It's like in a lake, so, or a river or whatever, so I counted it. It's good enough for me. But Dewdrop, this is the most adorable book I've ever read. I fucking love the illustrations in this. We're just following this cute little axolotl called Dewdrop, and there literally is hardly any text in here. There's hardly any text in here, and it follows Dewdrop and their friends as they sign up for the sports fair. And so the turtle is going to do the pebble throwing contest, the newt is going to write a song, and then the minnows are going to cook food. And it's just, like, honestly so adorable. All the art in this I love, especially how Dewdrop is portrayed is so cute. Every page that they're on, like, all the expressions they make, I just, like, want to cry. It's so cute. I loved everything about this. And Dewdrop is a cheerleader, and Dewdrop goes and cheers all their friends on and gives them confidence and reminds them how incredible they are. And yeah, everything about this is wonderful, perfect. I love it so much. This is definitely, like, a new favorite book. Like, I loved it. And like I said, both of these, lineless art. There is no lines defining stuff. It's just, like, insinuated. The lines in that they're just, like, inferred. There's no harsh lines. Where I tried reading Princeless, Raven the Pirate Princess, Book 1, Captain Raven and the All-Girl Pirate Crew. This is written by Jeremy Whitley, and the art, colors, and letters are by Rosie Higgins and Ted Brandt. And my issue with this is, yes, the art it's nice, I suppose, but I just don't like this style of art. Like, every time I try to read any sort of comic, like Marvel or just anything, I just don't enjoy it. Like, I don't think I've ever given one a high rating. There's just too many panels, too many words, and then also the art style all has these lines around it, and I just don't enjoy it. Like, it's fine, it's not that I hate it, but it just makes my reading experience a lot worse. So I only got the smallest amount into this and just realized I'm not enjoying this and I don't want to read it. And it sucks because the story is interesting, and if this was a novel, I would read it in a second. I would devour reading about a female pirate crew, and I think it's queer. Like, that sounds amazing. But just it with this art style, it's just not digestible to me, and it makes me so sad. So it says, fresh off her adventures in the pages of Princeless, Raven is ready to set out on her quest for revenge against her brothers. They've stolen everything that should be hers, and now she's going to get it back. But first she needs a crew. Share the laughs, action, and adventure as Raven assembles a fearless crew of awesome ladies who will help her get her revenge. If this sounds good, I recommend trying it if you like the style of art. unfortunately it's not for me, and I will be removing it from my TBR. The hard thing about that is that it was to read a book with a raven on the cover or the title, and that's kind of like a harder prompt to fill. But I think I have a couple things lined up that I could slot into that. They're just longer than it would have taken me to read that. But since I've gotten through a bunch of like smaller prompts today, I think it will balance out and it will be okay. And then the final thing that I read, so I finished 3 things in this reading sitting, is Delilah Dirk and the Turkish Lieutenant by Tony Cliff. And this is to read a book with a desert setting. This has been on my TBR forever. I picked up this copy at a library sale, I think in 2017, so it's been sitting on my shelves unread for a long time. And this one, I think because the art, it still is lined art, but it's a little bit more in the style where if the lines weren't there, like I could see this very easily like being turned into a lineless art, and I do like that. Okay, did I like the art or the story enough to want to read the next volume? No. I think something else good about this was there usually wasn't too many words on the page, which I appreciate. I just don't like a ton of words in graphic novels. But this follows this Turkish lieutenant who they end up capturing this girl, Delilah Dirk, and she escapes. He gets blamed for the escape, and so she helps him escape too. And it's like, has a lot of whimsy in it. I really like how Delilah was drawn. She's said to have, I think, a Turkish father and a Greek mother, and her nose is like very flat and like a little bit bumped on the bridge, and I think those are such beautiful noses. That is so good. So I loved getting to see her very, I don't know what they're called, but that kind of nose I think is absolutely gorgeous, and I love getting to see it on a beautiful woman. But yeah, I didn't love it. It was fun, it was cute, but it just wasn't like the right one for me, and I would probably give this one 3 stars. So it is what it is. There's definitely a lot of like hijinks in that book, if that's something that you're interested in. Also, I did want to comment on how freckly my face is. Like, I don't think it shows up that well on camera, but in person I'm like, I look like I have real freckles, which is always fun. I do believe that my life would be like 50% better if I had been born with someone with freckle genes. So that was very dramatic, I'm sorry, but I love freckles so much. So unfortunately I have to draw mine on, but that's okay because I can be creative with them. I did want to show you, speaking of that, like, because I had talked about it, basically when you use that spray on your face, you just pump it down a tiny bit because it needs to be like spurty. If it's spraying in like a tight stream, you will just get like a spray of color on your arm. I can leave the video link below where I found this technique on TikTok, but yeah, basically you have to just like let it spray, and then I splatter, I guess, and then I suggest like testing it on your arm until you kind of get a feel. Definitely the first, I don't know, 4 or 5 times I tried this, I hated it and I had to take it off, but then these last few times I've gotten better because I just like practiced and learned how to do it for me. I definitely wish I was able to get like a more concentrated freckle today, but I didn't want to risk like ruining all my makeup, and I was happy enough that I didn't want to keep pushing it. So anyway, I've already talked in the last clips what I plan on reading next, so I will update as I get some of that reading done. It's Saturday afternoon. I'm gonna be doing some crafts in a minute. Oh, it's 5 p.m. Is that afternoon or is that night, evening? Whatever. I'm going to be doing some crafts for the next little bit because tonight Riley Marie, for her Patreon, is going to be having a movie night. We're going to be watching 10 Things I Hate About You. I'm very excited. I really like that movie a lot. I've done a good amount of reading since I last talked to you, but I literally only have 2 minutes to update you, so lightning round. I did end up finishing A Dowry of Blood, and my overall rating is 3 stars. I kind of already talked about why it didn't get more, but I am glad I read it, and I would, like I said, if it was the same story but if it in a different writing style, I would have enjoyed it more for sure. But if you think the story sounds interesting, I recommend you picking it up. If you don't remember what it's about, basically it's about this woman who gets turned by a vampire and her living with him for hundreds and hundreds, maybe even thousands of years, and it's like polyamorous, it's queer. I really enjoyed those aspects of it, but unfortunately the rest just wasn't for me. And then I started We Are Legion, We Are Bob. I started it last night. I got like 30% into it last night, and now I'm about 70% of the way through it, and I'm really enjoying it a lot thus far. I will tell you more about what it's about in my next clip, but I really like it thus far, and I'm having a great time with it. It's exactly the type of science fiction that I enjoy, and I'm so excited to read the future books in the series. I'm glad that it's more than just one book. And then finally, I don't know, like 40% of the way through Buzz by Thor Hansen, The Nature and Necessity of Bees, and this is exactly what it sounds like. Super fascinating. I'm learning a ton about bees and bee culture and what they do and their relationships with other species and flowers and all sorts of stuff. Super fascinating. I've read 2 other things by Thor Hansen, and I've given them both 5 stars, and I can't see why this would be any different. So there we are. I'm gonna go watch the movie and hopefully get some crafting accomplished while I do so.
Ready for the prom?
Yes, ma'am. Would you give me a chance just
You were paid to take me out by the one person I truly hate. I knew this was a setup.
Kat, it wasn't like that.
It's Saturday now. It is just past noon, and I've gotten a lot of reading done, so let's talk about all the things. Last night we watched the movie. It was so fun. I had a great time. And then while I was doing that, I did a little bit of crafting, not as much as I would have liked. I played a lot of phone games during the movie, but one thing I was doing is almost 2 years ago now, my best friend sent me like a miniature crafting kit, and we worked on it a lot when we first got it, and then we stopped. Christopher and I were doing it together, and then I've pulled it back out over the last couple weeks, and I've been slowly chipping away at it. So there's like, right now I'm working on the books. It's like a little book room, so they're like little things, so I've been cutting them out, and then you like glue them together to be like little stacks of books and stuff. Very cute. So this will get turned into a little stack of books like this, and they are like hollow, but there are some more like realistic books as well. But that's some of what I did, is I cut stuff out. And then the other thing, you think you would have seen a clip of it, is basically I got these from the Dollar Tree, these little glittery pumpkins, and I ripped out the sticks that were on them, and then I put some like matching wire. And basically what I'll do for this is that right now I have little bats in my hair, but basically I would just put it in, and then you can kind of bend the wire to keep it in, and then you can have little like cute pumpkins in your hair. And I have some other pumpkins that are like a little bit bigger and that aren't glittery and stuff, and I saw these and I thought they would be so cute to have little glittery pumpkins this fall, or just whenever. I'm a pretty unseasonal dresser. I kind of just wear whatever I want all the time, even if it's not seasonally appropriate. Speaking of like wearing whatever I want and having little bats, the reason I have bats is because I I did a fun makeup look. This is totally and completely inspired by somebody that I follow on Instagram. There are the little teeth, and then there's little bite marks with blood dripping down for both of them. And this look I got from Perfectly Panning, and as you can see, I pretty much just copied it exactly. They don't really post makeup looks anymore, which is very sad, but Perfectly Panning, like, they posted this one in 2020. I have just like a big folder in my phone full of a bunch of my favorite makeup looks, and then I'll just flip through there when I want to do my makeup, if I don't already have something in mind, and then something will grab me. Like when I sat down to do makeup today, I was like, maybe I'll do something green, but I'm not sure, and I like looked through there, and lo and behold, I found that. And since I just read A Dowry of Blood, and we're watching What We Do in the Shadows right now, the TV show, we're on season 2, we're almost through season 2, and we've been watching that every day. I'm just like in a very vampire mood, so hence wanting to do that. And then I also have little ghost earrings on too, who are glow in the dark, so I will leave the Etsy shop where I got the ghosts, as well as Perfectly Panning's Instagram down below. The ghost earrings are from Bambi's Clay Design, and I also got one of my other favorite pairs that I own, which are like little morel mushrooms. I also got from there, and I wear them so much. Actually, I got them for Christmas last year, but I've worn them. They're probably like in the top like 5 most worn earrings that I've worn this year, and I also just got these ones from them, so they will get a lot of wearing. Alright, let's talk about books now. So I finished We Are Legion, We Are Bob, and I really liked this. I definitely think the first half was more engaging for me personally, but like overall I think it was really good. I definitely like lost me a little bit. It does have a lot of like technical stuff in it, and as me not knowing much about science and technology, it did get a little confusing for me, but that's just how it goes because I'm not that smart. So what this book is about is it starts off, and I'm not going to tell you too much because I didn't really know a lot going into it, and that really enhanced the reading experience for me. But we start off with this man named Bob. It's current day, and he just came into like a lot of money, and for some of his money he ends up investing in like a cryogenics facility where if he dies they will freeze his head, and then when they have the technology to bring him back they will do that. And so something happens, he ends up dying, and we wake up like 100-something years later, and he is now an AI, and you kind of follow him. It is like kind of dystopian. It's futuristic and it's dystopian because the current day America is god awful. So that was a little hard to read and very unpleasant, but overall I really loved Bob. I thought he was super fun to follow along with, and I just had a great time reading it. It's definitely like funny sci-fi, but I feel like a lot of the other fun sci-fi that I've read hasn't been as like tech heavy as this one, so just something to know when you go into it. But again, I really liked it. I would say I'd probably give it 4 stars, but I do want to read the future books. I just think that like it was so like it was a smaller capsule focus at the beginning, and then the book just brought in more and more characters, and the focus just got like just so spread out that I think that was my issue with it. That is that I was having trouble following so many characters, where it just starts off following one character and then there are more later, and that is like a multi-POV book. So that's something to know as well. But again, I did really like it. So that has been going great, obviously, because I finished a book, and then I think I'm going to be finishing another book today because I have continued listening to Buzz, The Nature and Necessity of Bees, and I am loving this. I'm about like 65% of the way through this now, and I love it even more than the last time that I talked about it. It is so fascinating, and the most recent section that I read was chapter 6 of Honey Guides and Hominins, and that was such a cool chapter. Oh my god, the way that honeybees and honey has intersected with humans for like so long, like hundreds of thousands of years. It's incredible. So cool. And how it like ended up, once they figured out that people have been eating honey forever, it ended up filling in some gaps of where people were getting like their calories and glucose from as they evolved. So fascinating. So really loving this. We'll definitely be flying through the rest because I keep just getting absorbed into it. And then the other book I plan on starting today is The Penderwicks, A Summer Tale of Four Sisters, Two Rabbits, and a Very Interesting Boy by Jeannie Birdsall. I've actually been meaning to read this one for a really long time. This is I talked about it a few vlogs ago, but this is going to be for the prompt of reading one of the oldest books on my TBR, and this has been on my Goodreads TBR since like 2011 or something like that, so a stupidly long time. I'm not going to read the blurb, I'm just going to go into it knowing nothing, and hopefully I love it. But I think my next goal is actually going to be just sitting here and reading the next 2 chapters of Disarmed, because I haven't touched this in a few days, and I really need to get through this, because if I leave it till the last few days, I will anxiety panic and not get it read. So achievable goals, right? It's Sunday night and I got a lot of reading done today. I'm very pleased with myself. So first thing is I got a lot further the way through Disarmed. I just planned on reading 2 chapters, and instead I read like 10 chapters maybe. So I'm nearly there. I'm on chapter 30 and there are 43 chapters, so just 13 left. And with this, again, I just like feel like it's overwritten, because it's just trying to give the detail. I feel like it is trying a bit too hard, but I need to read the next section like ASAP, because I need to know how things work out. But Aiden is being the worst in the book in general. So anyway, on a much higher note, I ended up finishing Buzz, The Nature and Necessity of Bees by Thor Hansen, and I loved this. The prompt for this one was to point to a random book on your shelf, and then like with your eyes closed, not looking, and then choose one of the books next to it on either side. And this was one of the books. I don't remember which book I pointed to, but basically I have a bookcase where I keep the books that I'm like currently in the mood for. It's like my seasonal TBR, and this was on there, so whatever I pointed next to it could have been like a middle grade or a fantasy or romance, literally anything. But I loved this, and I'm so glad I finally read it. I still have one more Thor Hansen book to read, which sounds super fascinating, but I read Feathers and I read The Triumph of Seeds, and I love both of those. I think this might, I don't know, I read those 2 like several years ago, but I think this one might be the easiest to get into, because a lot of people just have such a strong affinity towards bees, and I learned so much interesting information from this. But I thought there were also a lot of like, he does weave in his own like personal experiences with bees a little bit, and I think Thor Hansen is a wonderful writer, and I will read any sciencey thing he ever writes because I love it. And I definitely want to reread both of the other 2 books that I've read thus far, but he has a new book that came out last year, so that will be going onto my to-read shelf very soon. And then the other book that I worked on today is, I did start The Penderwicks, and this book, literally within the first chapter, I was like, oh, this is giving me Edward Eager E. Nesbit vibes, and then about a third of the way through they reference one of E. Nesbitt's books, and then like 70% of the way through they referenced one of Edward Eger's books. So it's definitely like very heavily inspired, and obviously like very much an homage to those authors, and it's kind of cool because like Edward Eger was very heavily inspired by E. Nesbitt, and so it's like they all kind of influenced each other, and it's just these, it's not magical at all, but it's just these kids having a summer adventure. And first off, like, it doesn't specifically say like what year this is, but it seems to be like, I don't know, maybe around the 70s or 80s, like, where like technology is not so far advanced that like a lot of kids are spending a ton of time outside, and then also like just like parents letting them go off and run around and like take care of themselves basically. So there is that, and I would definitely say this is like definitely a more updated version of those two previous authors. Like it has a lot, like, I don't know, I just tried to reread The Enchanted Castle last month, and it was so racist that I couldn't keep going with it. It was making me feel sick. And this book, while it doesn't have racism, it still doesn't like avoid everything. Like it has the M slur in this, and just like some, I don't know, a little bit of uncomfortable stuff. But overall, it's very fun. Like if you just want like a contemporary middle grade with kids getting into mischief and you are an E. Nesbitt or Edward Eger fan, I recommend it. I don't think it's anything that is going to stay with me, and then I also don't think that I would want to continue on in the rest of the series. I'm not like particularly attached to any of the characters, but it's fun. On the back it also says that it's perfect for the fans of like Noel Streatfeild, and I can definitely see that as well. But overall, I'm very pleasantly surprised. I should say I'm only like 80% of the way through this. I don't think I'll be able to finish it up tonight because I'm getting pretty drowsy, and I just don't think my brain can handle it. But I will definitely finish it up first thing tomorrow. And yeah, pleasantly surprised with this one. But I'll give you my final thoughts tomorrow. It's Monday now, and today is going to be the last day of this vlog, so let's see how much I can get read today. I'm hoping to, I've already finished one thing, but I'm hoping to finish at least one more, but we'll see how it goes because I also already have a bit of a letdown today. So first thing I finished, obviously, was The Penderwicks, A Summer Tale of Four Sisters, Two Rabbits, and a Very Interesting Boy by Jeannie Birdsall. I don't know if I ever mentioned what this is actually about, but it's about these four sisters, the Penderwicks, obviously. They and their dad go to, because it would just be the worst thing ever if you didn't get to go on a month-long vacation, like, in the summer. I don't know, the thing is with these, like, books that are a little bit older, it's just so often, I don't know, they just feel so, like, condescending and spoiled. Like, I don't know. And this is, like, the same thing with, like, Edward Eger books and stuff like that as well. There's just, like, since it's set in, like an older time, that's just, like, the expected that you get to go on a vacation for a month or two in the summer, and it's, like, the summer holidays, and, like, that's just not something I can relate to at all. Anyway, so they're gonna go and live in this little cottage, which is next to, which is like on the property of like a big mansion, and the big mansion has like a garden, and they're not supposed to go into the garden, and it's just about all the adventures they get up to. There's like a boy that lives in the mansion who's around their age, and so it's very like Secret Garden-esque, and then also there's this like older boy who is like 18 who is taking care of the grounds. He's the groundskeeper, and the oldest sister who's like, I think she said she's starting middle school, so she's 12 maybe, is like in love with him, and so that was quite annoying the whole time. Anyway, it was it was fun. I ended up enjoying it. I think I'd probably give it like 3.5 stars. There were just, if I had read this when I was 12 or 10 even, I think I would have really liked it a lot. I think that this would have been a series that I super enjoyed. I probably would have read the whole thing. I would have been so into it, but reading as an adult, it just felt a little lacking for me, and it kind of, like, that magical aspect, not real magic, but like that intangible thing about some of these books when we're a kid is just lacking for me now, unfortunately. But if it sounds fun to you, and if you want to find something that's Edward Eger, E. Nesbitt, Noel Streatfeild-esque, then I definitely recommend it. It was a good time. Not as much of a good time is this. So, The Secret Life of Fungi, Discoveries from the Hidden World by Aaliyah Whiteley. I am not enjoying this. So, I've been listening to it on audio this morning. It's only a 4-hour audiobook. I'm like 40% of the way through it, so I have 2 hours left. And I'm not going to finish it. I do not like it. I am DNFing, and I'm very sad. I just don't feel like there's a lot of good nonfiction books about mushrooms or fungi, and this, unfortunately, is also not one of them. I just really don't like the writing of the author. It just feels very anecdotal, and I don't know, I just like really hate the writing. I ended up marking a couple spots that like irritated me, so I'm gonna read them to you. So I think like one of the biggest problems is that the chapters are anywhere from like 3 to 6 pages, so you're not getting enough information about any of the things, and then the writing is just so like, I don't know, like just tries to be like, what is that word? Like, I don't know, just like frilly and extra, and just tries to be so lovely that I'm just not getting the information that I would want. So this is talking about a certain type of orchid and the fungi relationship that it has. So what do the fungi get out of the deal? The relationship of the orchid to the fungus is described as heterophilic, with the plant sometimes viewed as a sort of parasite, taking the carbon it needs and giving nothing back. Perhaps there's more we need to learn here to understand it fully, but for now, I'll anthropomorphize and romanticize it further by maintaining that a fungus can make a really good friend, especially if you're a rare weak seed with no energy of your own. It's just trying really hard. This next section is talking about Pilobobus, which is a mushroom that lives on like dung, and then since nothing comes near it to help disperse the seeds, it like explodes to get the seeds as far as it can. And this says, it's not the determination to reproduce that is unexpected. That's only what we should expect from fungus and from all life, vying for survival and yet fitting together when and where it suits, to find ways to begin again and again. It's only that it's a wonder to be human in this time of revelation, capable of understanding such things and seeing it with our own eyes through the lens of the camera, the slow dancers through high, so fast, so strong, finding ways to thrive. I don't know, and again, it's like, this is not what I want from this kind of book. Like, I don't want this like violet writing. I definitely don't want the book to be like boring, but I feel like Thor Hansen, the book I read yesterday, he just does such a good job of like combining it where it's still a little funny, but it's very fascinating, and I just get so pulled in to like what he's telling you, and you're still learning so much all the time, but it's very readable. And this like falls too far into the not presenting enough facts, and just, I don't know, it's very violent. That's definitely one of the words that I think will describe the writing for this, at least for me. I just don't like overly like flowery writing. I don't know. I just didn't love this. It's not for me. I'm not going to be finishing it. And I've actually heard a lot of bad things about this author's like fiction writing as well. So I think this will be the only book that I try to read from her. I could push through the last 2 hours of this very easily, but it's just not worth it. My time is more precious than this. It really annoys me. But thankfully, the prompt for this was to read a book that fulfills a prompt from last semester's list of prompts. So there were 14 prompts last semester. So this prompt, I could choose any of those 14 prompts and then choose any of like thousands of books to fit that prompt. And so it was a very easy prompt to fulfill. I chose a book with an earth setting, but if I don't feel like finding another book with an earth setting, which is incredibly easy to find, I could always find a different prompt and fit that in. But hopefully on to better things. The next book that I'm going to be starting today is The Secret Lives of Bats: My Adventures with the World's Most Misunderstood Mammals by Merlin Tuttle. This has been on my TBR for a few years and I'm so excited to read it. I've read several books about bats thus far and have always really enjoyed them, so I'm very excited. And the prompt for this one was to like random generate a book, so I just had like a list of books that I wanted to read of like a couple hundred books, and I random generated, and this is the one that came up. And then the other book that I'm going to start today is Tuesdays at the Castle by Jessica Day George. This is going to be a multiple chance author for me. So the prompt for this one is to read a book that's at risk of being unhauled, and while I don't think I will unhaul this book without at least attempting to read it, I don't know that I'm going to be able to complete it or that it's going to stay on my shelves afterwards. Like, this is a book that I'm intending to unhaul after I give it a shot, because I read a book by her which was the East of the Sun, West of the Moon retelling. I read that like maybe in 2018 and I did really like it then, but then last year I tried to read her 12 Dancing Princesses retelling and I gave it 3 stars. I didn't think it was very good, and then after that I tried to read the sequel to that book, which was Cinderella retelling, and I DNF'd it and thought it was like pretty freaking bad. So there was like a 4-star, then a 3-star, and then a DNF, and so I don't have high expectations for this at all. There's another book that I'm planning on reading next week in the next vlog, which is like to read a book from a second chance author, and if I end up DNFing that one, then I might switch these prompts around and find another book that's at risk of being unhauled. But for now, I'm gonna give it a try, and I really hope I like it. It's 11 p.m. now on Monday, and this is the last update of this vlog. So I got about 20% of the way into The Secret Lives of Bats, and I am enjoying it thus far. I was warned before going in that it is like his adventures with them, and so it's very much like his life going through his fascination with bats from being a child up to current day, and so it's kind of going like step by step through his life. And because I was like warned about it beforehand, because I'm typically not a big fan of memoirs, I'm actually okay with it, but you'll have to stay tuned for the next vlog to see what rating I end up giving it. And then the other book that I was reading today is Tuesdays at the Castle by Jessica Day George, and I ended up giving this one, I guess, 3.5 stars. It is, so one, it's better than I was hoping, which is good, but I was going in with very low expectations. But the title and the like idea of it just has so much like fun and whimsy. which is the fact that it's this princess and she lives in this castle that like grows and adds rooms on, gets rid of rooms that are no longer needed, and it's like very like Hogwarts-esque where like quarters are always changing and they'll grow longer and they'll like move rooms to other locations and add like furnishings and like makes your room bigger if it likes you, and then like shrinks down and is like really a horrible place to live if it doesn't like you. It just does whatever it wants, and the main character is like very much connected. Celie is her name. She's very much connected to the castle and they have a very strong bond. And so it like looks really fun and lighthearted, but content warnings for like death of parents, and it just like ended up being a really sad book. Like, and like I feel like what was happening was so just like depressing, but also it was like combated with this like very like strange levity and lightheartedness, and I just don't think it worked very well. Like there would be all these horrible gritty things going on, and then the main character is just so naive and bouncy that it felt very like disconcerting. I feel like also a lot of the characters in here didn't have a lot of common sense, and I feel like the writing of the characters wasn't very good, that they didn't feel very consistent, and that we'd like be told that they were a certain way, but then their like words and actions didn't quite match up. And overall, yeah, I don't know, like it was not as fun as I was hoping. I thought it was perfectly fine though, and if it sounds like a fun book to read, then I recommend. I feel like the idea of it is very fun, but it was just like very sad. I am glad that I read it though, but I think this is gonna be my last Jessica Day George potentially, and this is a 5-book long series and I don't plan on continuing on with it. The first one was enough, and this book also felt, and I don't know how the rest of the books are going to play off of it, but this book definitely felt like very much like a setup book. It was just giving you a ton of information, and I feel like the rest of the series would continue to be a lot better now that we have such a strong foundation of like the characters and the atmosphere, but I'm not willing to put the investment in for this not being as amazing. I feel like this book had a ton of potential that it just didn't live up to. Overall, I believe that I ended up reading 11 books this week. So here are the ones that I have physically, and I have them ranked here. Overall, it actually was a really good reading week for me. My lowest rated book was 3 stars, and then I got several 5 stars this week, so I'm gonna go over, let's go least favorite to most favorite. So on the bottom would be A Dowry of Blood by S.T. Gibson. This was for a prompt with a book with a bone on the cover, and I ended up giving this one 3 stars. I just didn't feel like the writing worked for me, but I still enjoyed it, and I'm still very glad I read it. Next, I was kind of surprised because my initial rating for this I think was a 4 star, but I'm gonna lower it down to a 3 star because thinking about it, I enjoyed the Penderwicks and Tuesdays at the Castle more than it, and they were both like 3.5 stars, so that means that this is like a 3 or a 3.5 star. So I'm in retrospect lowering my rating, but this was to read a book with a desert setting. Then we have Tuesdays at the Castle by Jessica Day George, and this is to read a book that's at risk of being unhauled. Gave this one 3.5 stars, obviously. Then we have The Penderwicks, and this is for one of the oldest books on your TBR, and this I've had on my Goodreads TBR since 2011, so it's high time I read it. I'm really glad I did, and I gave this one 3.5 stars as well. Then we have Valiant Ladies by Melissa Gray, and I ended up giving this one 4 stars. I just feel like it was a little long and drawn out, but overall I had a really good time with it. And this one was to read a book with multiple people on the cover. Then we have We Are Legion, We Are Bob by Dennis E. Taylor, and I ended up giving this one 4 stars. This was to read a book with artificial intelligence. Then we have Mushroom Rain. This is by Laura K. Zimmerman and illustrated by Jamie Green. And this is to read a book that you think has a gorgeous cover. And I love the illustrations on this, and I gave it 5 stars. Then we have Buzz by Thor Hansen, and this was to read a book. You point to a random book and then choose one of the adjacent books, and I give this one 5 stars as well. I highly recommend it if you want to learn more about bees. I just think Thor Hansen's science writing is very accessible and easy to get into. Then we have Bodies Are Cool by Tyler Feder, and this is to read a book in 1 or 2 settings. And I really loved this a lot. I love the inclusivity in it, and I think it's a great children's book to pick up and support because I love the inclusivity. It was just so like, it just made me so happy. It was so wholesome and warm-hearted, and I love just like embracing your body no matter what. It was wonderful. And then we have Dewdrop by Kay O'Neill, and this is to read a book with a sea setting, and I loved the story, and I especially just like love the illustrations. Everything about this book was just utterly divine. I want to be friends with all of the characters in this, and it just made me so happy, and I definitely am gonna have to pick up my own copy of this. And finally, the star of the week is Ace, What Asexuality Reveals About Desire, Society, and the Meaning of Sex by Angela Chen, and I think that this is one of the most important books I've ever read. It's going to stick with me for a long time. I'm definitely going to be rereading it in the near future, and if you take anything away from this stack of books, I hope that you go and pick this up because it like really impacted the way I was looking at stuff, and I just think it did a brilliant job. Highly, highly recommend. So that's it for this vlog. Thank you so much for following along with me, and I will see you in the next one. Bye, everyone.